Emily's heart fluttered as she read the email subject line, "Annual Christmas Party and Gift Exchange." This wasn't just any party, it was a highly anticipated event in her prestigious financial firm. For weeks, she had listened to her colleagues recount tales of past extravaganzas, lavish venues, expensive food, and the infamous Secret Santa exchange, where the minimum gift value was a hefty $50. For most of her colleagues, that amount was a casual expense, a trivial dent in their wallets. For Emily, however, it was an insurmountable figure. $50 represented careful budgeting, groceries, utilities, or bus fare for the week. The thought of participating filled her with dread, though she dared not express it. Opting out of the event wasn't an option. Attending was considered essential for networking, especially for someone new and eager to establish herself. Raised by a single mother in a modest home, Emily had grown up cherishing simplicity. Christmas for her wasn't about shiny packages or expensive gifts, but about homemade cookies, carols sung off-key, and handcrafted ornaments. Her mother, a seamstress with a knack for creativity, had always emphasized that the value of a gift lay in its sentiment, not its price tag. Yet, as Emily read through the party guidelines, specifically the emphasized no gift under $50 allowed, she felt like a fish out of water. Around her, colleagues buzzed with excitement, comparing ideas for the grand exchange, luxury watches, designer perfumes, and gourmet gift baskets. Emily felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on her, leaving her isolated in her quiet corner of the office. The party was 2 weeks away, and Emily found herself at a crossroads. She could spend money she didn't have to meet the standard or risk embarrassment with a less extravagant offering. As she mulled over her options, her upbringing whispered in her ear. "Creativity will always win over money," her mother used to say. That evening, while sifting through her belongings in her tiny apartment, Emily stumbled upon an unfinished wooden box tucked away in her crafting supplies. It had belonged to her late grandmother, a gifted artisan who had painted intricate designs on similar boxes. An idea began to bloom. She would create something unique, something heartfelt. It wasn't a designer watch, but it would reflect who she was. Emily's apartment was humble but filled with character. Every piece of furniture had a story, from the thrifted couch she had painstakingly reupholstered to the small, wobbly table that had been her desk since college. The walls were adorned with pictures of her family, her mother, whose strength had carried them through hard times, and her grandmother, whose hands had always been busy crafting beautiful things. On a high shelf sat the last box her grandmother had given her, an unfinished wooden piece that now seemed to gleam with possibility. Emily took it down carefully, her fingers tracing the smooth, bare wood. It wasn't large, but its potential was limitless. As she examined the box, memories of her grandmother flooded back. She could almost hear the soft hum of her voice, feel the warmth of her hands guiding hers as they painted together. Her grandmother had always found beauty in simplicity. "Every line, every curve must tell a story," she would say. Inspired, Emily knew this was the perfect gift. It wouldn't be about meeting a price tag, it would be about creating something with meaning. That evening, she laid out her supplies, paintbrushes, vibrant acrylic paints, and delicate carving tools. Each item reminded her of the countless hours she had spent learning under her grandmother's patient tutelage. Emily spent the next few evenings working on the box. She started by carving intricate patterns along its edges, designs reminiscent of her grandmother's style, swirling vines and delicate flowers. The work was meticulous but therapeutic, each stroke of the brush and cut of the chisel grounding her. She painted bold, vibrant colors onto the box, blending reds and greens to capture the warmth of Christmas. It wasn't just a gift anymore, it was a tribute to her grandmother's legacy. As the days passed, the box transformed from a plain piece of wood into a masterpiece. Emily couldn't help but smile as she held it up to the light, though a small voice in her head wondered if anyone at the party would appreciate its worth. The office buzzed with holiday excitement as the party date approached. Colleagues exchanged playful jabs about the secret Santa exchange, boasting about the gifts they had chosen. "I got my person a gourmet wine set," one coworker said proudly, eliciting impressed murmurs. Another chimed in, "Well, mine is getting a leather briefcase. Imported, of course." Their voices were filled with confidence, and their laughter echoed through the office halls. Emily tried to remain invisible, pretending to focus on her computer screen. She didn't want anyone asking about her contribution. Every day seemed to bring new reasons for Emily to doubt herself. She overheard snippets of conversation about how the event was an unspoken competition, a chance to show off not just generosity but status. "You know, last year someone brought a candle set. Can you believe it? So tacky," one coworker scoffed. Emily's cheeks burned as she imagined their reaction to her wooden box. Would they dismiss it as cheap or mock her for being out of place? The thought made her hands tremble whenever she picked up her tools to work on the gift. Yet, she pressed on, pouring every ounce of care and creativity into the box. By the time the box was finished, Emily was both proud and apprehensive. She wrapped it carefully in simple brown paper and tied it with twine, adding a sprig of pine for a festive touch. It was a far cry from the glossy, ribbon-adorned packages she imagined her colleagues would bring, but it felt authentic. "It's not about them," she whispered to herself, trying to muster courage. But deep down, she couldn't silence the voice of doubt. What if they didn't see the love she had poured into it? What if they only saw the price tag, or lack thereof? The night before the party, Emily carefully examined her finished gift. The wooden box was everything she had hoped it would be. The vibrant colors glistened under the warm glow of her apartment's single lamp, and the carved pattern seemed alive, telling a story with every curve. Emily had painted a delicate snowflake at the center of the lid, surrounded by holly leaves and berries, creating a festive yet timeless design. She took a deep breath, her heart swelling with both pride and trepidation. "This is enough," she whispered, trying to reassure herself. Her wrapping was simple yet elegant. She used a sheet of plain brown craft paper, folding it meticulously around the box. A length of twine tied in a neat bow completed the look, along with a small sprig of evergreen she had picked from a park near her apartment. While it wasn't the shiny, extravagant wrapping she imagined her colleagues would bring, Emily thought it looked charming. She placed the gift in her tote bag, ready for the next day. As she lay in bed that night, she tried to banish the creeping thoughts of embarrassment. "They'll see the effort," she murmured to herself, though she wasn't sure if she believed it. As Emily drifted off to sleep, memories of her grandmother filled her mind. She thought back to the summers she had spent in her grandmother's small workshop, watching her work tirelessly on her wooden crafts. The room always smelled of sawdust and paint, and the sunlight streaming through the windows gave everything a golden glow. Her grandmother's hands, though aged and weathered, moved with a precision that Emily had always admired. "A gift should speak to the heart," her grandmother would say. "The finest treasures aren't measured in money but in meaning." Emily remembered the time they had crafted a jewelry box for her mother's birthday. They had spent hours carving delicate patterns and choosing just the right colors. When her mother opened the box and burst into tears of joy, Emily had felt a deep sense of fulfillment. It was moments like that which had taught her the true value of giving. Lying in bed, Emily clung to these memories, drawing strength from them. Whatever happened at the party, she knew she was honoring her grandmother's legacy. The day of the party arrived, and the office was buzzing with excitement. Employees dressed in festive attire exchanged cheerful greetings, their desks adorned with holiday decorations. Emily, however, felt a knot tightening in her stomach as she placed her wrapped gift under the office Christmas tree. The tree itself was a spectacle, towering and adorned with shimmering ornaments and strings of lights that blinked rhythmically. Around its base were gifts wrapped in glossy, metallic paper, some tied with elaborate bows or embellished with name-brand tags. Emily's modestly wrapped box stood out like a sore thumb. She heard whispers as soon as she walked away from the tree. "Did you see that one with the brown paper? Who even wraps like that?" someone murmured. "Probably someone who forgot and threw something together at the last minute," another voice replied with a chuckle. Emily's cheeks burned, but she kept her head high and took her seat. She reminded herself that she had poured her heart into the gift, and that was what mattered. Still, the laughter and pointed glances from her colleagues chipped away at her confidence. The office party was held in the conference room, which had been transformed into a winter wonderland. Garlands and fairy lights draped the walls, and tables were laden with catered food and drinks. A small stage had been set up for speeches and announcements, adding an air of formality to the event. Emily stood in a corner, clutching a glass of sparkling cider, trying to blend in. Her colleagues mingled effortlessly, their laughter and chatter filling the room. She felt out of place, a shadow amidst their glow. The Secret Santa exchange was the main event, and soon everyone gathered around the tree. Mr. Davis, the company's charismatic CEO, took center stage. With a jovial smile, he announced the rules. Gifts would be opened one at a time, and each recipient would have to guess who had given them the present. Emily's heart raced as the first few gifts were unwrapped. Each was met with gasps of admiration and applause: designer watches, luxury chocolates, and even tickets to a Broadway show. Her modest box sat untouched beneath the tree, and she prayed it would stay there until the very end. Eventually, there were only a few gifts left under the tree. To Emily's dismay, Mr. Davis reached for her box. He held it up, squinting at the plain brown wrapping. "Well, this one has a certain rustic charm," he said with a chuckle, eliciting laughter from the crowd. Emily's pulse quickened as he began to untie the twine. The room fell silent as the paper fell away, revealing the hand-painted wooden box. For a moment, there was only quiet, broken by a few muffled giggles. "A box?" someone whispered. "How quaint," another added sarcastically. Emily felt her stomach drop. She had expected some judgment, but the reality of it stung more than she had imagined. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the floor and never come back. Mr. Davis, however, didn't laugh. Instead, he turned the box over in his hands, examining the intricate carvings and vibrant colors. His brow furrowed, and his expression softened. This is extraordinary," he said, his voice cutting through the murmurs. The room grew quiet again, the laughter fading into stunned silence. Mr. Davis continued to study the box, his fingers tracing the carved patterns. "This craftsmanship is remarkable," he said, holding it up for everyone to see. "Who made this?" Emily hesitated, her face burning with a mix of embarrassment and pride. Slowly, she raised her hand. "I did," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The room turned to look at her, and for the first time, she felt truly seen. "Tell us about it," Mr. Davis prompted, his tone gentle. Emily swallowed hard and began to speak. She explained how her grandmother had taught her the art of woodworking and painting, how each design on the box had been inspired by her family's traditions. As she spoke, the room grew still. Even those who had laughed earlier listened intently, their expressions shifting from amusement to admiration. By the time she finished, there wasn't a trace of mockery left in the air. Mr. Davis smiled warmly. "This isn't just a gift," he said. "It's a work of art." The room was uncomfortably quiet as Mr. Davis carefully placed the box on the table beside him, his hands resting on its lid as though it were a fragile treasure. Emily stood frozen in place, her mind racing. She had expected polite acknowledgement at best or, more realistically, ridicule. What she hadn't anticipated was admiration, especially from the CEO. "Emily," Mr. Davis began, his voice steady but warm, "do you realize how rare this kind of craftsmanship is? These designs, they remind me of a collection I once saw in a cultural exhibit overseas." Several employees exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier laughter now a source of shame. A few murmured weak attempts at compliments, but it was clear they were embarrassed. "I had no idea this level of detail could come from someone in our office," Mr. Davis continued. His words hung in the air like a lifeline for Emily, who felt her confidence flicker back to life. "The thought and effort you've poured into this are a reminder of what giving is truly about." The applause began hesitantly but grew louder as others joined in. Emily's colleagues who had mocked her moments before were now clapping, though their faces still bore traces of guilt. As the evening went on, Emily found herself approached by several colleagues who had previously whispered cruel remarks. The first to step forward was Sarah, who had been among the loudest scoffers when the box was unwrapped. "Emily," she began awkwardly, her voice tinged with genuine regret, "I owe you an apology. I didn't realize how much work you'd put into that gift. It's beautiful." Sarah looked down, clearly struggling with her words. "I was wrong to judge you." Emily nodded, unsure how to respond. Before she could speak, another coworker joined in. "Yeah, same here. That box is incredible. I couldn't do anything close to that." The apologies continued throughout the night, each one chipping away at the wall Emily had built around herself to shield against their earlier mockery. While part of her wanted to lash out, she chose instead to accept their words with grace. It wasn't easy, but she knew forgiveness would do more for her heart than holding a grudge. By the time the party wound down, Emily found herself seated beside Mr. Davis. The CEO had carried her box with him, setting it down on the table as though it were a prized possession. "You know," he said, swirling the amber liquid in his glass, "when I first saw that wrapping, I thought it might be a gag gift. But the moment I opened it, I knew it was special." Emily blushed, still unsure how to respond to his praise. "Thank you," she managed, her voice soft but steady. Mr. Davis leaned forward slightly, his expression contemplative. "Do you sell pieces like this?" he asked. The question caught Emily off guard. "No, I've only ever made them for family," she admitted. "This was the first one I've given to someone outside of that." The CEO nodded thoughtfully. "Well, if you ever decide to sell them, let me know. I'd love to help you find the right audience." His words sparked something in Emily, a flicker of possibility she hadn't dared to consider before. When Emily returned home that night, the weight of the evening settled over her. She set her purse on the counter and sank into her worn-out armchair, replaying the events in her mind. The fear, the embarrassment, and finally, the overwhelming sense of redemption. For the first time, she felt that she had earned a place among her colleagues, not through wealth or status, but through the authenticity of her work. It was a humbling realization, one that made her heart swell with pride. Looking at the spot where her crafting supplies usually sat, Emily felt a surge of inspiration. Perhaps her grandmother had been right all along. True gifts were never about price tags. They were about connection, effort, and meaning. That thought brought a smile to her face as she prepared for bed, the echoes of the night's applause still fresh in her mind. The next morning, Emily walked into the office feeling lighter than she had in months. The holiday decorations still adorned the walls, and remnants of the party lingered in the air. To her surprise, several coworkers greeted her warmly, their tones far more genuine than before. Even Sarah, who had previously avoided Emily except to make cutting remarks, stopped by her desk to chat. "That box. I keep thinking about it," Sarah admitted. "You really have a gift, Emily. You should do something with it." The words stayed with Emily throughout the day. Could she turn her love for crafting into something more? It seemed almost too good to be true, yet the idea refused to leave her mind. By lunchtime, she had made a decision: she would try. Maybe not right away, but she would explore the possibility of sharing her art with the world. For now, though, she allowed herself to savor the newfound respect she had earned. Later that afternoon, Emily received an email from Mr. Davis's assistant. The subject line read, "An opportunity to discuss your talent." Her pulse quickened as she opened it. The email explained that Mr. Davis had connections with a gallery owner who specialized in showcasing unique crafts. He wanted to introduce her and explore the possibility of displaying her work. Emily read the message twice, then a third time, hardly able to believe it was real. The very idea felt like a dream, yet here it was, sitting in her inbox. That evening, Emily sat at her desk, drafting a response. Her hands trembled as she typed, but her heart was filled with excitement. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in years, she felt that it was bright and filled with possibility. Emily nervously entered the cafe where she was set to meet the gallery owner, a woman named Claire Addison. Claire was a friend of Mr. Davis and had years of experience curating artisan works. The cafe was a quaint little place, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and soft chatter. Emily spotted Claire immediately, a poised woman in her early 50s, dressed in a sleek outfit that exuded elegance. Claire stood and extended a hand as Emily approached. "You must be Emily," she said with a warm smile. "Mr. Davis has told me so much about your work." Emily sat down, clutching the wooden box she had brought with her. "It's an honor to meet you," she replied, her voice betraying a hint of nervousness. She placed the box on the table, and Claire opened it carefully. For a long moment, Claire studied it in silence, her fingers tracing the carvings. When she finally looked up, her eyes sparkled with admiration. "This is extraordinary," she said. "Your craftsmanship is impeccable, and the designs are so intricate. Have you considered creating a collection?" The question hung in the air, and Emily hesitated. "I've never thought about making these professionally," she admitted. "I've only ever done it for family, and this was my first time sharing one with someone else." Claire nodded thoughtfully, setting the box down gently. "Well, I believe you have a gift. If you're interested, I'd love to help you put together a series. There's a market for this kind of work, especially during the holidays." Emily felt a mixture of excitement and doubt. Could she really take this leap? It was one thing to create a single piece, but an entire collection seemed daunting. Still, the encouragement from both Claire and Mr. Davis had sparked a confidence she hadn't known she possessed. "I'd love to try," she said finally, her voice firm despite the butterflies in her stomach. Claire beamed. "Wonderful. Let's start small, a collection of 5 pieces." We'll feature them in a winter exhibit next month." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Emily worked tirelessly in her small apartment, transforming her living room into a makeshift workshop. Wood shavings littered the floor, and the air smelled of paint and varnish. Each evening, she poured her energy into creating, channeling her memories of her grandmother's teachings and the festive spirit of the season. Her days at the office remained busy, but her nights were dedicated to her craft. By the second week, Emily had completed 2 boxes. Each was unique, with designs inspired by winter landscapes and holiday cheer. One featured snow-capped pine trees, while another showcased swirling patterns of frost and ice. Though the process was exhausting, it was also deeply fulfilling. For the first time in years, Emily felt truly alive, as though she was finally doing something that mattered to her. One evening, as Emily worked on her 3rd piece, there was a knock at her door. She wasn't expecting anyone, and her apartment was a mess of supplies and half-finished projects. Wiping her hands on a cloth, she opened the door to find Sarah standing there, holding a small potted poinsettia. "I hope I'm not intruding," Sarah said, shifting awkwardly. "I just wanted to drop this off and see how you were doing." Emily hesitated but stepped aside to let Sarah in. As Sarah looked around the cluttered apartment, her eyes fell on the 2 completed boxes sitting on the table. "Oh, wow," she breathed, moving closer to inspect them. "These are even more beautiful than the one you brought to the party." Emily felt a surge of pride but kept her response humble. "Thanks. I'm working on a collection for a gallery exhibit." Sarah turned to her, her expression filled with genuine admiration. "You're incredibly talented, Emily. I'm sorry I ever doubted you. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help." Emily smiled, feeling a sense of validation she hadn't expected. "Thank you, Sarah. That means a lot." As the exhibit deadline approached, Emily completed her final piece, a box adorned with a golden star surrounded by intricate patterns of light and shadow. It was her most ambitious design yet, and as she stepped back to admire it, she felt a wave of emotion. These boxes were more than just gifts or works of art. They were a reflection of her journey, a tribute to her grandmother, and a testament to her own resilience. The night before the exhibit, Emily carefully packed the 5 boxes, wrapping them in protective cloth and placing them in a sturdy case. She felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The hard work was done, and now it was time to see how the world would receive her creations. The gallery was buzzing with activity as guests arrived for the winter exhibit. The space was elegantly decorated with twinkling lights and winter-themed artwork. Emily's collection was displayed on a central pedestal, each box arranged under soft lighting that highlighted their intricate details. Claire greeted Emily warmly, introducing her to several guests and potential buyers. "This is the artist behind the beautiful wooden boxes," she said proudly. As the evening progressed, Emily overheard guests admiring her work. "The craftsmanship is incredible," one woman said. "And the designs are so unique," added another. Emily felt a swell of pride and gratitude. For the first time, she saw herself not just as an office worker trying to fit in but as an artist with something valuable to share. As Emily moved through the gallery, still overwhelmed by the praise her work was receiving, a man in an elegant suit approached her. He introduced himself as Michael Reynolds, a buyer for a high-end boutique that specialized in handcrafted items. "Your pieces are extraordinary," he said, handing her his business card. "We're always looking for unique, artisanal items for our store. I think your work would fit perfectly with our collection." Emily was taken aback. The boutique he mentioned was renowned, catering to a wealthy clientele who valued quality and exclusivity. "That's an incredible offer," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "But I'm not sure I can produce on a larger scale. This collection took me weeks." Michael smiled warmly. "Take your time. Quality is far more important than speed. When you're ready, let me know, and we'll work out the details." Emily slipped his card into her pocket, her mind spinning with possibilities. Later that evening, as the gallery began to wind down, Claire approached Emily with a wide smile. "You've done it," she said, gesturing toward the pedestal where a small sold sign now sat beside each of Emily's boxes. "Every piece is spoken for. Congratulations." Emily's heart swelled with pride and disbelief. People had not only admired her work but valued it enough to invest in it. She felt tears prick her eyes as she thanked Claire for her support. Back at home, Emily called her mother to share the news. "Mom," she began, her voice trembling with emotion, "I sold all 5 boxes. People loved them." Her mother's voice, warm and full of pride, came through the line. "Oh, sweetheart, I knew you could do it. Your grandmother would be so proud." They talked late into the night, reminiscing about old Christmases and the lessons her grandmother had instilled in them. It was a moment of connection and affirmation that Emily knew she would treasure forever. When Emily returned to work the following Monday, she was met with an unexpected reception. Her colleagues, who had once dismissed her as unremarkable, now greeted her with genuine warmth. "I heard about the gallery," Sarah said, stopping by Emily's desk. "That's amazing. You're practically famous around here now." Another coworker chimed in, "I wish I could have bought one of those boxes. They were stunning." Even Mr. Davis stopped by to congratulate her. "Emily, I'm glad you took the opportunity. Talent like yours deserves to be shared." Emily thanked him, feeling a mix of gratitude and humility. Though the office still felt like a place where she didn't fully belong, she no longer felt invisible. Her colleagues had seen her for who she truly was, and that validation gave her a newfound confidence. That evening, Emily sat at her desk, reflecting on the events of the past few weeks. Her small wooden box had sparked a journey she hadn't anticipated, one that was now brimming with potential. She pulled out Michael Reynolds's business card and turned it over in her hands. Could she take the next step and turn her passion into something more permanent? The idea was both exhilarating and daunting. Emily began sketching designs for a new collection, her mind racing with ideas. She envisioned seasonal themes, spring blossoms, summer waves, autumn leaves, all brought to life through intricate carvings and vibrant colors. For the first time, she allowed herself to dream big, to imagine a future where her art wasn't just a side project but a central part of her life. As Emily worked on her sketches, she realized she needed help if she was going to scale her efforts. She reached out to Claire, who connected her with a local artisan community. Through them, Emily met Daniel, a retired woodworker with decades of experience. Daniel agreed to mentor her, teaching her advanced techniques and helping her refine her process. "You've got the talent," he said during one of their sessions. "Now you just need to learn how to balance art and efficiency." With Daniel's guidance, Emily began to streamline her workflow without compromising the quality of her pieces. She learned how to source better materials and use tools she hadn't touched before. The partnership invigorated her, and she soon felt ready to tackle the boutique project. Emily visited Michael Reynolds at his boutique a month later, carrying 3 new boxes she had created as samples. The boutique was as elegant as she had imagined, its shelves lined with handcrafted goods from around the world. Michael examined her pieces with care, nodding approvingly. "These are even better than your first collection," he said. "We'll start with these, and if they sell well, we'll talk about expanding." Though the deal was small, it felt monumental to Emily. For the first time, her art was being sold in a professional setting, reaching customers who would appreciate its value. She left the boutique with a sense of accomplishment, knowing she had taken the first step towards something bigger. Over the following months, Emily's boxes became a hit at the boutique. Customers praised their uniqueness, and demand began to grow. Michael requested more pieces, and Emily found herself balancing her day job with her burgeoning art career. Though it was exhausting, it was also deeply fulfilling. Each new box she created felt like a step closer to the life she had always dreamed of. One day, Emily received an invitation to participate in a larger artisan showcase. The event promised to feature some of the best handcrafted works in the region, giving her an opportunity to reach an even wider audience. It was another chance to prove herself, and Emily knew she couldn't let it slip by. As Christmas approached, Emily decided to host a small gathering for her friends and family. She decorated her apartment with handmade ornaments and filled the air with the scent of freshly baked cookies. Sarah and a few other colleagues joined, bringing warmth and laughter into her home. Her mother beamed with pride as she admired Emily's latest designs, marveling at how far she had come. Amid the celebration, Emily felt a deep sense of gratitude. She thought back to the party where it had all started, to the moment her simple wooden box had changed everything. It hadn't been an easy journey, but every challenge had shaped her into the person she was now. On Christmas morning, Emily sat at her desk, carving a small wooden box. This one wasn't for a gallery or a boutique, it was for her mother. Inside, she placed a handwritten note that read, "Thank you for teaching me the true meaning of giving." As she tied the box with twine and added a sprig of evergreen, Emily smiled. She had discovered her calling and honored her grandmother's legacy, all while staying true to herself. From now on, she would make it a tradition to create something meaningful each Christmas, a reminder of how far she had come and the power of a gift from the heart.